Welcome back. My name is Brian and this is Barefoot Behavior. Today we are exploring a crucial question, and depending on the answer, could save you hundreds of dollars and change the way that you approach camping forever. Today, we're going to test that a sturdy, well-made, 3-season tent is the most versatile tent, one that you can use year-round. Yes, a 3-season tent in the 4th season. Buckle up, it's about to get real. 3-season tents of equal size compared to 4-season tents are generally lighter weight, less expensive, easier to set up, and all around more versatile. These are the factors that are supposed to make a 4-season tent different from a 3-season tent. 4-season tents generally weigh more, and this is to handle higher winds and snow loading. What is it that tent marketers don't want you to know?
Big tent secrets.
Do I really need an expensive 4-season tent to camp year-round? We set out to understand this and looked to analyze 3-season tents based on temperature, wind resistance, and snow loading. First place I started was with temperature. So, is there a temperature at which a 3-season tent is no longer a safe option? If you've seen our other videos on sleep systems, you know that in general, your tent is really not going to be what keeps you warm, and it's your sleep system that keeps you warm. There's no temperature at which a 3-season tent is no longer useful, provided that you have the appropriate sleeping gear. So temperature is not a reason to purchase a 4-season tent. So we move on to the next variable, wind speed. So we're going to assume that a 4-season tent in general can handle higher winds than a 3-season tent. Are winds stronger in the winter, and do these wind speeds exceed the specifications of a 3-season tent? There is a standard called the Beaufort Wind Scale, laid out by NOAA. Using this for wind speed, we're going to compare and look at tents against this standard, from 25 miles per hour to 54 miles per hour. I wanted to know if anything beyond a fresh breeze that your tent would still keep you safe. We know that you're a safe camper and you're going to check weather conditions before you go out on any trips. So our focus isn't going to be measuring against hurricane force winds, but we will revisit this topic. Starting with 3-season tent wind ratings, I started by looking at major manufacturers' websites and reading tent descriptions. To my surprise, there was not one single tent manufacturer that had an indication of wind ratings for their tents. Oof, this is gonna get interesting.
Mountain Hardware, North Face, Big Agnes, Nemo, Zempire, MSR, Black Diamond, Hilberg.
MSR said that it was built to handle fierce winds. Now, fierce is not a scientific term. The Nemo, made with our proprietary Osmo poly nylon, this tent promises 4 times better water repellency, 3 times less stretch when wet, and a 20% higher strength rating than similar fabrics. This isn't telling me what this tent could withstand in terms of wind. Can it do 30 miles an hour wind, 40 miles an hour wind, 50 miles an hour wind? I think I see what's going on here.
Liability.
So just when I was ready to give up, I thought I found it. The Hilberg tent. They're black label models. They quote unquote, will handle any terrain or weather condition, from the mildest to the most demanding. Any weather condition technically includes any weather condition.
To be honest, this sounds a bit unrealistic.
So no one is willing to claim any wind rating. And on the other hand, Hilberg is ready to claim any weather condition. After seeing the price tag, noticing that they run upwards of $2,500, it's a bit steep, but I am tempted to put this tent to the test of any weather condition. If this video right here gets over 1 million views, I'm gonna rent a professional commercial wind tunnel facility. You know those ones that you see where they blast the cars with hundreds of miles an hour of wind?
We're gonna hit them hard and share the results.
I gotta know that this is something that you guys wanna see. Personally, I would love to see a $2,500 Hilberg tunnel tent go up against a commercial wind tunnel machine. So let me know. Now, I'm not saying that these aren't good tents, but why wouldn't a tent manufacturer talk more about arguably the one thing that their product is intended to do, which is resist wind? People are trusting their lives in these structures. Not one single tent manufacturer even comes close to indicating a rating against the wind. There should be some type of standard rating system, right? It doesn't exist. Where do we go from here? We need to get an idea of what different tents can handle in terms of wind. The closest thing that I could find was a dude strapping tents to the roof of his car and driving down a runway at different varying speeds. This is the current standard. Things that happen when you're driving a car, you have wind coming up the windshield, you have wind wrapping around the back of the car and potentially having a higher force near the rear. There's potentially opportunities for a headwind. It's not super scientific, but again, it is something, and thank you to My Life Outdoors for capturing this data, because today we're gonna use it, because it's all we got. We have varying wind speeds, testing 6 different types of tents. We have the Z-Pax Duplex Zip, which withstood 30 miles an hour. We have the Big Agnes Copper Spur, which held up to 40 miles per hour. We have the Featherstone Backbone, which a clip failure happened at 40 miles an hour. We also have the Durston X Mid Pro, which had a stitching failure at 40 miles an hour. And then we had a couple of outliers. We had the MSR Hubba Hubba, which had a pole collapse at 50 miles an hour. And then we had an Amazon purchased Nature Hike Cloud Up 2 that had a pole collapse at 50 miles an hour. Now, the thing about the last 2 tents that failed at 50 miles an hour is that they didn't break, they just collapsed. So these tents could actually be popped right back up and continue to be used on a backpacking trip. So for those 2 tents, we're gonna say that they were 50 plus. Using the tents from this experiment, tents 1 through 5 were actually 3-season tents, and their average failure point was at 40 miles per hour. Now, the 6th tent was actually a 4-season tent and was able to hold up to 50 miles per hour. This validates our prior assumption that a 4-season tent in general can handle higher winds than a 3-season tent. It also tells us that on average, so far, a 3-season tent should be able to handle up to 40-mile-an-hour winds. So wind resistance is definitely a factor when it comes to tent selection. But is this a consideration that's primarily for the winter? In order to answer this question, we need to touch on the basics of wind patterns around the world. The wind is in fact stronger in the winter in some places, but not everywhere. The Earth has 5 major wind zones. Polar easterlies are stronger in the summer. Westerlies are strongest in the winter and weakest in the summer. The horse latitudes are usually light. Even strong winds are often short in duration. Trade winds blow east across the tropics. These are very predictable and make up most of our tropical storms. And finally, you have the doldrums, where the trade winds the 2 hemispheres meet, called the intertropical convergence zone. This shows that the wind is not stronger in the winter everywhere, but it is stronger in the westerlies. I think it works like this. Secrets. Because the majority of the population experiences stronger winds on average during the winter months, some tent makers offer a stronger option and label it a 4-season tent, built to handle stronger winds. This is referring to an average wind speed, and I would argue that max wind speed is actually a more important metric, seeing as all it takes is 1 strong wind gust to ruin your day. Average wind speeds actually don't tell you what the wind is truly capable of. When do the strongest and most extreme winds happen, not just the highest on average? I looked at major wind events around the United States and which date they fell on. And what I found was 13 of the most extreme examples within the United States showed some pretty serious wind gusts from 92 miles an hour all the way to 145 miles an hour. And interestingly enough, only 1 of these 13 extreme wind gusts measured in American cities fell within the winter months. So is the wind more powerful in the winter or no? Well, on average, yes. But does it really show up that way? Not exactly. So when is a 4-season tent absolutely required? 4-season tents are best reserved for high altitude alpine trips, where the weather conditions can change in a moment's notice, and snow is a little bit more likely. Don't think of 4-season tents as winter-only tents. And don't limit your 3-season tent to only 3 seasons. You can get out in the winter in your 3-season tent, provided that it's not going to be overly windy. And this applies to the other seasons as well, spring, summer, and fall, where you're also likely to find extreme wind events at certain times. As a general rule, selecting the best tent for you really boils down to 3 main questions. Where are you going, when, and for how long? Seems simple, right? How much snow load can a 3-season tent handle? Again, I ran into the same issue with the tent descriptions, and so unfortunately, I was not able to find any experiments for this one. We may just have to do one ourselves this winter to find out. One trick that I liked is that if you're camping where there are trees around, you can always set up a tarp over the top of your 3-season tent during the snowfall, and this will help shed some of the snow that's falling and to stop it from building up on the outside of your tent. Because of that, I'm going to say that snow loading isn't going to necessarily be a problem for a 3-season tent. Always check the weather before you go and enjoy getting outside more often with the gear you already have. If this video gets some interest, we're going to start taking every tent that we can get our hands on and putting them through the wind tunnel to get you accurate wind ratings. This has been Barefoot Behavior.